Alright, this is a nigun from this last Motzei Shabbos. Right after Shabbos, this came down. Kadesheinu b'mitzvah yisecha Zel chelkeinu b'say yasecha Sara bereinu mituvecha V'samach nafsheinu Yeshuasecha Kadesheinu b'mitzvah yisecha Zel chelkeinu b'say yasecha Sara bereinu mituvecha V'samach nafsheinu Yeshuasecha Kadesheinu b'mitzvah yisecha V'sel chelkeinu b'say yasecha Sara bereinu mituvecha V'samach nafsheinu Yeshuasecha V'taher libeinu li'ovecha be'emes V'taher libeinu li'ovecha be'emes V'taher libeinu li'ovecha be'emes V'taher libeinu li'ovecha be'emes Hey la 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 Di la 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 Bum ba la 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 di 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 La 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 Di la 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 Di la 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 Hey la 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 Oh la 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 Kadesheinu b'mitzvah yisecha V'sel chelkeinu b'say yasecha Sara bereinu mituvecha V'samach nafsheinu Yeshuasecha Kadesheinu b'mitzvah yisecha V'sel chelkeinu b'say yasecha Sara bereinu mituvecha V'samach nafsheinu Yeshuasecha again Kadesheinu b'mitzvah yisecha V'sel chelkeinu b'say yasecha Sara bereinu mituvecha V'samach nafsheinu Yeshuasecha V'taher libeinu li'ovecha be'emes V'taher libeinu li'ovecha be'emes V'taher libeinu li'ovecha be'emes What happens sometimes you have a few notes that are stuck in your mind. They're stuck in your mind and in your heart for like sometimes months and months and months. Those few notes, but it was more like suffocating because nothing was happening with it for a month. Just and sometimes it's just like when you stop trying, gates are open. So I can't stop singing this nigun since Motzei Shabbos. And thank you so much for that harmony, everyone. And so thankful and glad that everyone's here. I want to thank my wife for once again making sure everyone feels at home here and everyone feels also mazonost. Yeah? No?
Good,
Yeah, go for it. I can see it. It's okay.
It's almost done.
Brucha haba. So many special people here tonight. First of all, tonight's shiur, my brother-in-law, my dear brother-in-law Yehuda Zaidi, right now is in the operating table in New York, and I wanted to begin. I have his name here. 1 second for the refuah shlema. Zu gesund. Everyone should be healed. This is for everybody. Bezrat Hashem. Here we go. It should be for the refuah shlema of Chaim Simcha ben Shendel. Also for the refuah shlema Nachum Shimon ben Reisel, and Leilui Nishmas Batya Rivka Bas Tzvi. Neshama should have an aliyah. You're Zaidi, yeah?
Babi.
You're Babi, sorry. You're Babi Yenachon. You're Babi. Only nachas. Only good news. And Shari Shemaim should be wide open tonight. So we have Chaz Hashem. Sometimes, what happens is after I go back sometimes to previous year's learning, and I always remember that when it's really, really strong, I always say, maybe it's kedai to do the same exact thing again, because if we say, no, we already did it last year, then we should also not show up to shul after you do a whole cycle of reading the Torah. You read every parsha. I don't have, whatever, I read that last year. I don't have to come back to shul. I read it last year, right? So why do I have to go back into it again? So don't worry, we're not doing exactly the same as last year, but I wanted to go back to last year's learning for one quick second, because tonight's learning is the second half of that tape that was transcribed last year before Shir. This is the second half of that tape, of a 1983 Shir that Rabbi Shlomo gave in New York City. A very, very, very important, it's like a basis, Shir bsisi, like a basic, fundamental Shir in understanding where we're at right now. So I know you all know this already, but just to emphasize this again, is that whenever we learn about the parshas and the Torah and the stories that take place, so even though right now the parshas that we're talking about are celebrated more in the month of Nisan, Yitzias Mitzrayim, there's a hitorut, there's an awakening of what happens in these parshiot right now as well. Meaning, like we said last year, you don't have to wait to do b'dikas chametz the night before Pesach. You could start doing b'dikas chametz already from right now. That's what it's really all about. If the preparation for freedom, one of the basics of preparing yourself to be free is b'dikas chametz, cleaning out the chametz inside of you. So we know that the night before Pesach, you go around with the candle and a stick and a bag, and you start cleaning out. The parshas take place now in January, February, every year, so that it gives us a head start to see, do you really want to leave Mitzrayim this year? And if you really want to leave Mitzrayim this year in your own personal life, like we spoke about last week, you're not going to wait till the night before Pesach to start cleaning up your chametz. You're going to do it now while you're reading about the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. So the awakening of Pesach, what Pesach brings out of us, that feeling of liberty, of freedom, of Yetzi'ah Meitzarim, of leaving narrowness, is a very, very special time right now to actually tune into it now. So having said that, last year, I just got to ask the Chaver from Web Yeshiva to please mute your precious microphones. I'm so happy you're all here, but, I can mute it for you. Every teacher's dream. So obnoxious what I just said, but yeah. All right. I have beautiful Chaver with us from all over tonight. Last Shabbos kind of leaves us in this not calm. Last Shabbos we end Parshat Shmot with a very weird interaction between a human being who God revealed himself to him at a burning bush, the utmost revelation that ever took place in the world, and it ends off by that person questioning that power. Moshe Rabbeinu turns to God. It's a question that I'm sure you and I have asked many times, and I'm sure we all asked ourselves this past Friday afternoon. Ribono Shleim, Lama hareota la'am hazeh? Why are you making it so bad for these people? Moshe Rabbeinu is turning to God and he's saying, why are you making it so hard for Jewish people? Why are you making us go through so much week after week, makkah after makkah, month after month? I just saw a few minutes before Shir, someone sent me these 4 pictures of the Yiddelach that were privileged, that were blessed to hide in the freezer in France. I don't know if these pictures went around yet. I just saw it right now, the pictures in the freezer. And it's like, Ribono Shleim, I'm so thankful, so happy that those Yidden were saved. But those 4 families that are singing Shiva now, Ribono Shleim, Lama hareota la'am hazeh? Why do you make it so hard? Hareota is a very weird word. Hareota means, why do you make things mamish bad? Not hard. Hard is kashe. We don't say lama heksheta la'am hazeh. Lama hareota. Why did you make badness take place to this people? And the Parsha ends off by Hashem telling Moshe Rabbeinu, "Oh, okay, you're asking? I'm about to answer you, but chakeh. Just 1 second. There's a whole intro before I could actually show you how I'm going to answer you. I need to talk to you one-on-one time right now." And then what does the Parsha do? Bye. Wait till next week. Amazing. Amazing thing. It's nothing. Atatire, now you're going to see what I'm going to be doing. And the manner, and this is very important right now, but the manner in which the Ribono Shleim answers Moshe Rabbeinu is the same answer that you and I have when we ask the questions, God, why are you making it so hard on Yidden? Why do you make it so difficult, Hashem? Why is it so difficult to feel chosen in a happy way? Why is it so difficult to hold on to high moments? And why is there always this learning of the in-between? Like last year's learning, what we did was we took the answer that Hashem gave Moshe Rabbeinu at the beginning of our Parsha, and we spoke about it like this, that Hashem was explaining to Moshe Rabbeinu, your forefather, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they had no problems with the way I ran the world. You, who saw more than them to a certain extent, you're asking shilas? You have more clarity than anyone, and you're asking shilas? And in last year's teaching, what we did, and it's important, I sent out the text a few days ago. I'm going to send out the video and the text again tonight. Whenever I send out tonight's shir, it's important to go over it because it really is mashlim. It completes what we're going to be learning tonight. The flip side, but it completes. And in that teaching that we did last year, the answer that Moshe Rabbeinu was getting was that there's a Torah to be learned while things aren't clear to you. Something tremendous happens to you when you're in a relationship where things aren't clear to you. In fact, something even more beautiful, bless you, something more beautiful happens to you when you're not sure what's going on, as opposed to when you have certain clarity. Something happens to a person. And Hashem was explaining to Moshe Rabbeinu, bless you, that's exactly what I'm trying to give over to Am Yisrael, the beauty of the in-between. How precious it is to learn about the person you're in a relationship with, but more importantly, to learn about yourself while things aren't clear to you. But tonight, we're going to be, I don't like the word we're going to attack it from another corner. We're going to look at things a little bit differently from another side. And I think it's a side that many of us will be able to really connect to very deeply. Bezrat Hashem. But I just want you all to know that sometimes we learn these teachings, and I see sometimes people like bury their heads behind the paper because they're like, oh my God, if anyone knows that this actually has to do with me, I'd be too embarrassed to show my face in here. And then you look around and everyone's going like this, and everyone's red on the face, and it's fine. We're here to become tomatoes. This is the place. This is not, when I was, it doesn't happen to me as much when I was younger. And then, I guess because I have more facial hair, but I would last smeek all the time. I'd blush from you mentioned that a certain girl's name that would walk and forget it. I was done. So here we come. This is a holy blushing night in a good and positive and sweet way. What's that? I'm blushing. I do apologize about the toner. The print is not as chazak as I would have wanted it to be, but we'll get through it. You ever realize when people say, I don't like talking about politics, and then the next sentence is,
I don't want to say anything bad, but
right. One of the books we put out one day is, I hate to say bad things, but, a whole book of, but you ever realize when people say, I don't like to call myself so and so, but, and then there's like a whole list of what the person calls himself, like those public speakers that say, I really have nothing to say, but, and then they pull out a Megillah from their pocket, that they prepared. So tonight's one of those nights where we're gonna touch upon something very, a place we all connect to. I think a place that we all connect to very much. Avinadav הגיע? הגיע. So, you got? You got? Yeah? Okay. One extra. Okay, we have a few extra if anybody needs. Okay, L'Shem Yichud Kush, Abichu Shchintai, B'tchil B'chimim, Rabbi Shlomo says like this, Parshat Va'era. Did you ever meet someone who says, I'm a universalist. I can't limit myself to one religion. I'm a universalist. Shabbos? How can I limit myself to just one day? For me, Shabbos is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It's like saying, Rabbi Shlomo says, I cannot limit myself to live in one house. I have to live in the subway. I sleep there, and all night long I'm going from one place to the other. But to just live in one house and have one key, sleep in one bed, I just can't limit myself to it. So what are they missing? Have you ever seen parents saying, I want my child to choose religion, right? What's their that's a very, I've heard that statement very much often around certain parents that are, how do I say this in a non-judgmental way? I don't know. How do you say something that's really burning in your heart in a non-judgmental way?
open-minded.
I'll do my best, you'll do best not to judge. Okay, isn't it beautiful when parents say, I don't know what this, okay, whatever, we're all going to blush it out tonight. Listen, I don't want to force religion on my child. I just want to raise them to the place that they'll have enough zehut atzmit, a strong enough self-identity by the time they reach a certain age in order so that they're able to make decisions on their own when it comes to their spiritual paths. I could have said that so much simpler, much more simple. But you hear what I'm saying. Did you hear the thing? It's like there's this kind of like admiration for people that say, we're so non-kfiyah, we're so not forcing, we're so not forceful in our chinuch, in our education, that what we're going to do is we're going to show our children a lot of beautiful things, but God forbid that they should ever feel like they have to take something because we're shoving it down their throat. So we're just going to prepare them so that they reach a certain age, and then they could choose whatever religion they want. But as long our chinuch is, our education is, that we give them enough of a sense of confidence that they know that they can trust themselves. But they for them to conform to one way, no, that sounds very old fat. That's kfiyah. That's forcing. That can't be anything holy about that. I've heard this many times actually. It's not a pashut thing at all. I've heard it many times. So Rabbi Shlomo says like this: what's their problem? That probably means he's not so happy with that. Right? What's their problem, right? It's like one time I heard him give a whole story about a misnagid and a chassid, and he ended up this very long and deep story, and he said, so what's his problem? And then he said, obviously, besides the fact that he's a misnagid, what's his problem? Whatever, not for now. Rabbi Shlomo says like this, listen, second paragraph, listen to this, and here I want you to open your hearts. The more serious something gets, the more you narrow it down. Don't worry, Chaver, we're gonna get through this paragraph, okay? The more serious something gets, the more you narrow it down. I remember one time I asked a whole crowd of people, how much paper would you need to write down your secrets? One girl said, thousands of books. Right, because that sounds deep, right? I have thousands of secrets, right? Finally, it was my turn. I said, I could write my secrets on the top of one nail and it would still be half empty. Because the more you get into what's real, the more you narrow it down to just one thing. I'm going to say that last sentence again. The more you get into what's real, the more you narrow it down to just one thing. Do you know, like it used to be, I'm trying to think of a good example for today. I mean, there are many examples. But the fact that there's a variety of so many things, as much as that's more on a shefa level, on a, how do you say shefa? Abundance, on an abundant level, there's so much more. So there's so many more choices, so many more options. So the truth is, that's messed with our minds tremendously. It used to be, what's on tonight, right? Oh, Tuesday, so the Cosby Show, or I shouldn't have. Sorry, that was a total Freudian. Whatever it is, okay. You had one thing. That's what you prepared for. It was great. There was excitement towards one thing. What's now? You can watch whatever you want, whenever you want, how many times you want, in whatever language you want. If you want to watch it all, you can listen to whatever you want at any given moment, and you think that's more gewalt because you have so many more options. Remember how precious it was when you had one. I mean, I could only date myself back to cassette tapes. You had one cassette tape, and all you could do is put it in that one Walkman and listen to one tape, and you couldn't jump tracks. You know, I'm thinking like my children are gonna, when I talk like that, they think like I'm an ancient God knows what, caveman. You couldn't jump tracks. You actually had to listen through sides and go through the whole thing. How much more did we appreciate tapes like that? Who sits down and listens to a whole album from the beginning to end now? So Rabbi Shlomo said here something interesting. The more real something gets, the more you narrow it down. What's been a big issue, I think, when you want to sound deep and you want to sound real? What's the last way you want to sound? What's the last way you want to feel like you're coming across?
Phony.
What's that?
Phony.
Phony or shallow, narrow-minded. Yeah, narrow-minded. Oh, that's all you're into? What do you mean? You're that? Oh, the world is so much bigger. How could you say you're just one thing? And here I want to get to something that's a little bit touchy. It's a little bit, like I said before, be a little bit, you know what, we'll read a little bit more and then we're going to get to something that's going to make everyone feel uncomfortable, okay? Look. Well, last year when we started Parshat Ve'era, I told you all, if you want to know why God makes it so bad for us, learn the Parsha and everyone will find out why things are so bad and hard for people, because Hashem answers us in our Parsha. So we have to understand there's big stuff happening in this Parsha, in this answer, that Hashem answers Moshe Rabbeinu. Very big stuff. Not so pashut to deal with. And that's what we really keep this in mind. Everything Rabbi Shlomo is doing now is to understand the first few psukim in our Parsha. And how Moshe Rabbeinu understands the Geula. Hashem Echad doesn't just mean there is one God. Sure, there's one God. But Hashem Echad means that when it comes to the real thing, it's only one. Just one. I have a friend in Los Angeles, a very, very dear friend of mine, who told me that a Jews for J freak came to the shul, and he said, he started speaking his very heavy shtuyot, and what was so amazing is that the person, my friend, who was a very big, I would call him universalist, meaning open, loving for everything, right? He came, and the Jews for Jesus guy started saying, what do you mean? If you really believe in God, then you believe that God is bigger than however finite you make him. That God could be bigger than whatever you see. There's a lot of truths. If you really believe in God, it's much bigger than just your narrow mind. It's got to be bigger. And my friend said to him, no. There's one truth. Hashem Echad. God is one. We're so nervous sometimes to sound narrow-minded. But do you realize how narrow-minded it is to say that God is one, and not that God means a lot of different things? It's the most narrow-minded statement that we say, and it's the most important statement that Am Yisrael has ever said since we became a people. In order to understand what we just said right now, we have to look back inside. Again, I want to read these two lines. Hashem Echad doesn't just mean there's one God. Sure, there's one God. But Hashem Echad means that when it comes to the real thing, it's only one, just one. Now, right away, just jump in your mind. What else could you substitute in this paragraph? When it comes to the real thing, it could only mean one. What else in our life we have to treat the same thing? Marriage? Very scary that no one said that right now. Okay. These are not dvarim b'shamayim. These are things like we have to understand. These are things we have to realize they're coming to us right now. These Torah is going to show up closer and closer in our hearts. So look in the next paragraph. So here the Ishbitzer says like this. When God starts answering Moshe Rabbeinu in our Parsha, he tells him, Vakimasi es brisi itam. He starts saying, listen, Moshe Rabbeinu, your fathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, like we learned last year, how did I reveal myself to them? Through what name? Shin and Dalet and Yud, Shakai. Right? Really, we don't say that name, just like we don't say God's Yud Ke Vav Ke either. I revealed myself to them through that name, which you will see what that name means, which is a lower level of revelation than Yud Ke Vav Ke, which is the way that Moshe Rabbeinu was revealed to. And they had no problems with it. They were okay. They didn't start asking me questions like you're asking me. But understand what I was doing with them. Hakimoti et briti itam. I was busy carving a covenant into their being. Hakimoti et briti, hakamat brit. I was making a covenant take place. And now we're going to understand what a bris means, what a brit means, what a covenant truly means. Everybody knows that the covenant between God and Israel was not via Moshe. The covenant was via our three fathers. And what's a covenant all about? What was carved into Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? The biggest tzimtzum. A covenant is the biggest narrowing down there is. A covenant means I narrow myself down to one point. But Gewalt is it deeper than all the openings I could ever have. So here Rabbi Shlomo is explaining to us what it means to narrow yourself down to one thing, and how that sounds like the most shallow and narrow-minded approach. However, that is much deeper than being open to anything in the world. But for us to understand this, we have to rewire the way that we understand certain concepts. You know what the most classic answer these days when you want to show someone that you're open-minded is? When you ask, oh, so what are you, Chabad, Breslev? Or you want to run away from answering that question like wildfire, because you think that if, God forbid, you say, I'm Chabad or I'm Breslev, that means you're just so narrow-minded, and it's such a, what do you mean? You're supposed to say, Ani Yehudi. That's great you could say that, but what's wrong with saying, I'm Vishnitz? Or I'm Chafetz Chaim? What's wrong with saying that I found my Shoresh Neshama through this tzinor, through this pipeline, that the source of my soul comes to life through a certain way of certain Torah. I wish I could say I'm Lubavitch. Because when you start learning a little bit of the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, it's a dream to be married to that way of thinking. It's a dream. I wish I could say I'm a chassid of the Nachal Novem of Rabbi Nachman. I wish I could say that. Meaning, I want to explain something. It used to be that when God sent all these pipelines for us to connect our neshamas through different ways, we were supposed to look at each other and someone would say, what are you? You'd say Breslev. Be like, wow, I'm so happy for you. Instead, what? When someone says they're Breslev or they're this, oh, they're still stuck in those, gullus titles and this and that. It's not about that anymore. It's everything, it's everyone. Where there's something lacking in that way of thinking. Because it's a beautiful, beautiful thing if you're able to find your Meshicha, your attraction through a certain tzinor, through a certain pipeline. But people run away from these titles because it's so scary for them that they might sound narrow-minded. So today, what do we have? When you want to show that you're not narrow-minded, what do you say? If anyone says to you, so what are you? Like, are you guys this and that? No, ani akol. Alavai, you know what it means, ani akol? Alavai, you could say ani akol, that I receive from everyone everything, and everything makes me more beautiful. Psh, that's the ultimate. But it's not stam that there are different drachim, there are different ways to connect. Like imagine, if someone came to Shevet Zvulun, and someone asked one of Zvulun's children, so what are you? Are you, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar? No, I'm Yaakov. Okay, I know you're Yaakov, you're part of, I understand that, but one of the miracles that took place in Kriyas Yamsuf, everyone knows, the splitting of the Red Sea, is that the sea split into 12 different tunnels of water. The beautiful midrash, Chazal talk about it, and Rabbi Nachman's 9th teaching in Likutei Moharan is all about it. I think it's the Utera Tehomas Yechasimu. And what was the miracle? That miraculously, every single shevet, every tribe, knew that to go into their exact tunnel. Based on that, we also understand that there used to be 12 different nusachs of davening. What do we have today? Ashkenaz, Sfard, Edot Mizrach, mainly. But it used to be that there were 12 different nusachs, because each shevet was made of something else. And each tribe had their own way of speaking to their Rebbeinu Shalom. It's just part of their DNA. But can you imagine going to like Shevet Levi and saying, so what nusach do you daven, like in order to understand where they're from? They say, oh no, we daven nusach Yaakov Avinu. Okay, we understand you come from Yaakov Avinu. But the Rebbeinu Shalom created a certain tunnel of water for you to cross your own Yamsuf. You're not going to go into it because you're a Universalist. So I can't limit myself to one tunnel. It was created for you. Sorry, I can't. I'm bigger than that. My life is much bigger than that. Can't be.
Rabbi Shlomo.
He was asked that at the end of his life. Rabbi Shlomo was asked at the end of his life. And it boiled down to two names. Ishbitz and Reb Nachman. And he said that he's still not sure at the end of his life. He said, if I was sent off to a deserted island and I can only take one book, he said Likutei Moharan. He did say that. There's another teaching, it's in Evan Shlomo Bereshis, where he says that a person that's special is someone that has one special thing that's more special than anything else. A person that's special is someone that has one special friend who's more special than anything else, because only like that can a person learn the value of something being special in your life. But if you say everything is special, everyone's the same, you have nothing special in your life. This is where we're heading to with this. Okay? It's like, it's not a bad thing if there's one Rebbe who speaks to you more than any other. Doesn't mean you're supposed to down everybody else. Like, why do we have a hard time with these labels, I'm this, I'm that? Because instead of being like, wow, it's so beautiful, he's Breslov, instead of saying that, it's more like, oh, we become threatened. We become threatened if we're not exactly the same as what they're doing. So it's a very deep teaching here that's going on. It's going to be developed a bit more. The biggest, again, what's a covenant all about? What was carved into Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? The biggest tzimtzum, a covenant, is a tzimtzum, is a contraction, litzamtzem. A covenant is the biggest narrowing down there is. A covenant means I narrow myself down to one point. Meaning, when I get married, I have a bris nisuim, I have a covenant of marriage. So on the one hand, what do? I say, wow, instead of being able to receive all different types of beauty from all different types of women, and a woman with man from all different types of men, I'm narrowing all the beauty that exists in the world into what? One person. Does it get more shallow and narrow than that? No. That's the deepest thing in the world. Because that enables you to receive more beauty and holiness than all the beauty you think you could receive by being such an open universalist. Now look this next line. What does it mean to have a covenant with Hashem? Does it mean I stop being universal? Without sounding coarse, if I tell you I cannot marry one woman because I cannot limit myself to one woman, I have nothing. If I cannot make a covenant and I cannot commit myself, I can't narrow myself down to one, I simply have nothing. When I change every 2 minutes, I have nothing. And when you have nothing, you go from one to the other. If you have no house, you sleep on the subway. But do you know how special a house is? Do you know how special one corner of a house is? Someone once told me, I'm universal, I can't limit myself to Yerushalayim. For me, Paris and Bombay are also holy. What's his problem? He has nothing. Meaning, there's no one... What's that? There's no way in the world. We weren't meant to be, wasn't meant to be that everything is supposed to be the same. Everything is beautiful and everything is godly. But every person we're finite beings with an infinite neshama. Our infinite neshamas want to be connected and attached to everything and learn from every religion and learn from every teacher and be part of every society and have friends of every single type of, chevra. But the truth is that our neshamas that are in bodies are longing so much to find a home. And not just to feel comfortable living on subways, jumping around from one place to the other. That's what we really, really want. We want to find stability. Yesterday in the Rav Kook Shir, we were talking about that. What the soul longs more than anything for is to have Yishuv Adas, is to have a settling of the mind. Meaning to have a home, to have somewhere where I dwell in. As much as I want to be flying all the time, I also want to know that there's one place that I always go back to place my head on the pillow. There's one blanket that covers me every night, next to one person that I'm next to every night. As much as I want to see the world and be beautiful, at a certain point it just doesn't last. You'll see this is all a build-up to understand these two names of God. You'll see in a second. But listen here to what he says. This is the deepest depths. He means the Ishbitzer. I just want to say, Chavre, and those of us who are learning online, if you could help me with this. I looked in all the Ishbitzer Sfarim. Zusha, I see you're learning with us tonight. If you could help me with this, I'm sure you can. It'll be very, very helpful. He says, the Ishbitzer says, and I looked through, there's the Mea Shilach, the Ishbitzer Rebbe, and then there's the Beis Yaakov, his son, and then there's the Sod Yesharim. I looked in the first two generations of the Ishbitzer Sfarim. I couldn't find it inside when he says the Ishbitzer says. Now that always means, you should know, that the way that he heard the Ishbitzer say what he said is what he's talking about. But if anyone can help me find the makor for this inside, I'd be really, 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 really excited and happy. So whoever can find this, I'd really appreciate it. But listen here to what he says, this is the deepest depths. Basically, which by the way means not basically, when he says that, you understand, right? Basically, the name Shin Dalid Yud is the name of Tzimtzum, is the name of contraction, narrowing down. Why? She'amar le'olamo dai. So the Nesiv Shalom, he quoted the Gemara in Chagiga, which explains why this name, Shin Dalid Yud, refers to a contraction, more a narrowing down, focusing on one thing. What does the Gemara say there? Shebe'et shenivra rakia, when the sky was being created, haya mitpashet v'olech bli gvul. It was being spread across and getting bigger and bigger without any borders, without an end. Ad shamar HaKadosh Baruch Hu le'olamo dai, until God told His world, die, enough, stop being infinite. V'ne'etzar harakia milit pashet od. And the rakia and the skies and the heavens have a certain end in this world. So this word Shin Daled Yud, she'amar le'olamo dai, that he told his world enough. That's what the name alludes to, as opposed to what other name of God is the exact opposite, where it's infinite, no borders, it's bigger than whatever we could ever imagine. Yud Kei Vav Kei. We don't even know what that word is. Yud Kei Vav Kei. What do you call in English the tetragrammaton? Yeah. So that is sorry, I gotta mute someone again. So that alludes. Yud Kei Vav Kei is just infinite. But Shin Daled Yud is like, no, Sha'amar le'olamot dai. This is enough. It's enough till here. There's a limit to everything. What does God tell Moshe Rabbeinu? Your fathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they were satisfied with a Shin Daled Yud relationship in the world. They never asked me, Lama Hare'ota, why are you doing bad to this person? Why are you doing bad to this person? What did Avram Avinu, did he ever doubt what God was doing? No, he davened to Hashem, please save the people of Sdom. Yitzchak, we have no concept of what was happening with him. Yaakov Avinu, do we find him starting to doubt all these things? Mapitom. And they went through so much. Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayera elav Hashem, Vayera elav ani Hashem. He tells them, now I'm going to reveal to you something much bigger. But in order for you to understand what you're about to receive, first understand what your fathers didn't receive. Which is a very heavy statement. And it's not, God forbid, to belittle the relationships that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had. Kol davar bizmano. At the time of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, God revealing Himself in the world through Shin and Daled and Yud was exactly what they needed. In the time of Moshe Rabbeinu taking Am Yisrael out of Egypt, Yud Kei Vav Kei, meaning much bigger, what we call Hanhaga Nisit. A miraculous leadership is what Am Yisrael needed at that time. You know, in our lives as well, many times we don't want big things. We want to focus on narrowing down. Hashem, I don't want to understand everything about my neshama and everything I have to go through. I just want to know, should I date him or not? Right? Or I just want to know, should I take that job or not? And then sometimes, Ribbon Shleilam, what am I doing here in this world? What am I doing here? What's my tikkun? Which is something that we learned also in the Rav Kook Shir. People are only asking that question much more in our generations. These are not questions that were asked hundreds of years ago, not so often. Today, everyone in the world, no matter how much they know or don't know, is wondering, what's my rectification of my soul in this world? Who spoke like that 100 years ago? But we also have the smaller Shin Daled Yud questions of what should I do over here? A more limited revelation. So again, basically the name Shin, Daled, and Yud is the name of Tzimtzum. She'amar le'olamo dai. The world is so very big, but the way God created the world is that He opens the gates of being able to narrow yourself down to one point. By the way, that's what makes God God. That He's so huge, and yet He lets us feel that we have a personal relationship with Him. Only God can orchestrate what seems like such a dichotomy. It's amazing. Like, I remember I once was walking, I told you this, I was once walking with a good friend of mine, Pesach, who we call him Pesach Sheni. I'm not sure if that's really his name or we just named him that. But maybe he's just the miracle of second chances. But he's a very special Yidla. And Mamash a holy Hippala, like one of the last ones that's left. We're walking down the street in Yerushalayim many years ago, and we realized that we know the same person. We're talking about the same person and we know the same person. So I turned to him, I said, Pesach, wow, what a small world. Which is what we always say, right? He looks at me and he says, bro, it's a huge world with loads of hashgacha. I'll never forget that when he said that. It's not, because the truth, it's not a small world at all. The fact that we know people that, we play Jewish geography, we know, that's very, very, very miraculous that Jewish geography works on a people that are such a small, tiny percentage of world population, and yet we're able to find each other and know each other. It's an incredible thing. So Rabbi Shlomo says here, what's so amazing about Ribono Shel Olam is that the world is so big. Just think right now, get out of your tzimtzumim. Don't worry, we're going to mitzamtzum ourselves in a few minutes when we end, but get now really big, wide, much bigger. This world is so big, God is so big. What happened in France this week, that the Ribono Shel Olam is there. What's happening in Indonesia, the fact that they found the black box of that plane of the Air Asia flight today, that's part of the world of God that we relate to. Everything that's ever happened is part of this Ribono Shel Olam. Everything is so big, the world is so massive. And yet what? The way to connect to God is through a certain nekudah. Each person can find what they're looking for through just one path and one avenue, one sinor, one Rebbe. On a certain level, sometimes all a person needs is one vort, one Hasidic story, one nigun. I know people that are frum because of one nigun. I know people that mamish believe in God because of one nigun, because of one tale, because of one shir, because of one Rebbe. Does that make them narrow-minded? It means that they're mamish being godly in finite bodies. That they're able to narrow down, in the words of Shin and Daled, in the name of Shin Daled Yud, that not everything is supposed to be so expansive. It's supposed to be narrowed down. And we're supposed to find our Shorish Neshamas through a certain way. It doesn't mean that you're narrow and shallow if there's one way that really talks to your Neshama. But it means that you're the most narrow, shallow person in the world if you don't believe that there's more avenues for other people. That's what makes you the most narrow, shallow person in the world. And that's what we're stuck in. That we do fall in love with our paths and that which speaks to us more than anything else. But when someone else doesn't connect to what I connect, I can't accept that. That's where the negative narrowness comes down. That's where the shallowness comes down. We can't believe. This thing is turning me on, this must be the emes. If you don't believe in this tzaddik emes, then you're going to Gehenna. And that's what we've done with our Shin Daled Yud relationships. And that's such a gullus. That's such an exile. A real Lubavitcher should care less if you end up becoming Lubavitch. If you're really a chassid of the Rebbe, then you care that for the fact that a Yidla should realize he has a soul. That's so much more important than anything else. So you see the danger. The danger is that when you do fall in love with your chelek, with your tzinor, instead of being so thankful, I found my derech, what do we end up doing? Whoever doesn't connect the way, whoever doesn't swim through my channel to cross Yam Suf, it must mean they're zevel, they're nothing. And how many Yidlach have been turned off by people who look at Yiddishkeit like this? So many, I know so many. That it has to be this way. God put something into the world, second line on the top, that you can narrow yourself down to one thing. If God wouldn't have put this name Shin Daled Yud in the world, you couldn't even talk to one person. Everything would be infinite. Have you ever seen those people that while they're talking to you, one eye is on you, one eye is on someone else, and they're already somewhere else? They're nothing. Even a dog responds to you when you talk to him. So they might be universal, but they're not connected to the name Shin Daled Yud. God narrowed down the world. Day is day, night is night. And all the more so after the Mabul. Summer is summer, right? After in Parshat Noach, then there's a change then there's seasons. There's no more just everything always. Summer is summer. Winter is winter. A tree is a tree. And this is a classic Rabbi Shlomo line that I had to keep in here for tonight. Imagine an apple will say, I want to be universal. I can't limit myself by just being an apple. I want to taste like an orange, look like a grape, smell like an onion, and be sweet like Coca-Cola. Which really is what we do to ourselves all the time. I want to be this, but I want to look like that. I want to sound like that. I want to have a feel of that. Because I want to show that I'm everything. I'm everybody. That's what's really cool. That's what's in today. If an apple tastes like an orange, smells like an onion, has a feel of a potato, that's what's in. That shows that I'm bigger, larger than life. People want to be attracted to that. No narrowing down over there. Are you an apple or not, Rabbi Shlomo says. If you're not an apple, you're nothing. Meaning, if you're an apple and you say you're not an apple, you're nothing. I always tell people, have you ever seen an apple coming to a psychiatrist saying they have an identity crisis? They can't identify as an apple? Why do we Jews have this trouble? You know, I've heard so many Chabad lectures about Chabad rabbis on campus that whenever they say, they're always asked the following question when they first open up their Chabad house or whatever, when someone comes to a class and raises their hand and says, Rabbi, why does it have to be that the Jewish people claim that they're the chosen ones? Why can't everyone just be chosen? So the rabbi always says, that's always the first guy, whoever says that is always a Jew. A non-Jew never asks that question. A Jew always asks that question. Non-Jews don't have those. A Jew is always the one to say, well, why do we have to be like the way we are? Why can't we be something else? A Jew is always the one that has problems being a Yid. Why are people so fearful of commitment? Because all they can think of is how much they won't have once they narrow themselves down to something. And here I want you to open your hearts in the deepest depths. That, to me, whenever he says that's always drum roll. Whenever he says, and here, I want to open your hearts in the deepest. Like I always hear that in the back of my heart. On the mezuzah, the name Shin, Daled, and Yud is on the outside, right? That's what's written on the outside of mezuzah. And the name Yud Ke Vav Ke, Shem Hashem, is on the inside. Do you know how deep this is? You think God is narrowing down when you choose one derech, one wife, one family, one shul? When you're into the narrowing, saying, this is how I want to connect, this is for me, this is my Shoresh Neshama? You think God is narrowing down? It just seems like that on the outside. From the inside, you have the whole world. When I narrow myself down to that which is most precious in life, I have the whole world. I have everything. Do you know how deep this is? Meaning, on the outside, yeah, I narrowed myself down to one woman. And it's not stam that my wife isn't present tonight, but you understand what I'm saying? Whenever a person says, you know, how could I just narrow myself down to... It's true. You're not going to be tasting the chitzonius of love from so many different options in your life. But when you narrow yourself down on the outside to just one person, you're able to taste the root of love that exists in the world, which you could never taste if you're not narrowing down to one nikuda. Is that coming across clear? Mm-hmm. What other example would you give for that in life? That when something looks like you're narrowing it down to just one thing and you're making yourself into a box, what you're really doing is you're tasting so much more. Yeah.
Well, being into music, like I'm sure you've listened to music from other sources besides
Jewish music. So what happens when you love sounds and music from all over the world, right? And, and then, like, I was with Sherry, this happened this Friday.
Yeah.
And he says, what kind of music do you want, Mom? And I said, Shabbos is coming, Jewish music. And he said, racist. He was teasing.
Racist.
He called me a racist because I wanted Jewish music.
Because he wanted Jewish music. He was kidding, right? I prayed too. I really do. No, with music it's interesting. You could have a lot of hashpaz, you could have a lot of influences, it's true. But at the end of the day, if you say, I'm sorry, my shoresh neshama comes alive most through this one, that doesn't mean you're narrow-minded. It means po ani mitchaber. This is my link. And the feeling that I have through Avodas Kodesh, through this type of music, what comes out of it, is so much greater than if I would always be open to trying to connect through 50 million different things. You taste the root of something when you're narrowed down to the root. As long as you're just tasting from everything, you can only enjoy the branches. But the root is only one of your source of your soul. Chavra, I want you to realize what he's saying. This is a very, very important piece. This is very, very deep. This is not something that we're going to understand when we leave tonight. This is something you have to go over 1,000,000 times. It's not so pashut. I understand it, but you have to always look back and say the way that God created the world was that He created us with a way of narrowing things down to something in a holy way. Not being boxed and saying only this is good, but that each person really does have one, a certain connection. And I'm so glad you said it, Rabbi Shlomo. Because the truth is, he'd be the last person in the world you could box. But he himself also said, remember the last summer of his life, he was asked if there was one person you would ask questions for your soul and for the soul of Am Yisrael, is there one person you would ask your questions to? So of course he said, no, there's no one in the beginning. And 45 minutes later, he came right back in that same class. And he said, wait a second. Remember before I told you there's absolutely no one that I, Ramesh, would say, I could narrow myself down to that one person that could tell me what my soul needs to hear? He said, it's not true. There is one person that if he was alive I would ask. And he said Rav Kook. That's what he said. 2 months before he died. Does that mean he's narrow-minded? No, it means what a privilege to know a little bit about yourself and to be able to say, this is probably what could relate to me the most. What a privilege that is. What a holy thing that is. So you narrow yourself down to one tzaddik, but Gavad, that one tzaddik is offering you the taste of the whole world. The problem of those who have everything but have nothing is because they have never found one thing. I'm sorry, we're in the middle of the paragraph before that. When I narrow myself down to that which is most precious in life, I have the whole world. I have everything. Do you know how deep this is? The problem of those who have everything but have nothing is because they have never found one thing. Now, listen to this. This is the deepest depths. Outside of the roots, you can be connected to everything. Like we said, branches, ani nanemi kulam. I love everyone. Everything is special, everything is great. But the root is always made of one place. There can be thousands of apples coming from just one root. One Avram, one Yitzchak, one Yaakov. A covenant connects me to the roots of my roots. So now we're going to try to see, I know it's a little bit late, but now this last paragraph became ma kesher to the conversation between God and Moshe Rabbeinu. I understand, I got the whole deal, I get it. It's more important, I get it. It's more important to not be scared to sound like you're narrow. I get that whole thing, hopefully I get it. It's a very deep Torah. What does it have to do with Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So what is Moshe Rabbeinu really asking of God at the end of last week's Parsha? Right, what does Moshe Rabbeinu ask Hashem? Lama hare'ota la'am hazeh? Your word, God, you're the most dynamic power in the world. How come you're just not knocking off everyone one by one and just ending this whole thing right now? Moshe Rabbeinu says to God, how come you told me what will happen and it's not taking over the world yet. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu was told by God, you're going to do this, and then this is going to happen. You're going to do this, and this is going to happen. So Moshe Rabbeinu was wondering, wait a second, you didn't take us out of Mitzrayim yet. That's why Va'era is a very interesting thing. Va'era is the Shabbos of the in-between, because we're fully in Galus, this Parsha. The first 7 Makot happen, but we're not fully out of Mitzrayim, we're still inside. So Rabbi Shlomo says, Moshe Rabbeinu says to God, how come you told me what will happen, and it's not taking over the world yet? Why doesn't it expand all over the world? When I want God's name to shine, I want it to really take over the world. Like right now, I'm telling you, yesterday I was looking at Bibi, I was watching Bibi giving a speech in the shul in Paris, and everyone there was singing Am Yisrael Chaim when he walked into the shul. Okay? It's a very high moment. The most nostalgic we'll probably ever get to anything that reminds us of those Zionist movies we watched when we were growing up. You know, those moments rarely happen today. But he's in this shul in Paris where 4 Jews were just slaughtered a few days before. And he's saying, and we're remembering that we're persecuted people, and people are saying Shema Yisrael, and we're wondering, Ribbon Shalom, it's still not, your word still hasn't conquered the world, that it's time to come home? That our Prime Minister has to apologize because he told French Jewry that they should come home to Eretz Yisrael? Why in the world? How in the world could that be? That your word, God, isn't clear to all, forget the world. Why isn't it clear to all of Am Yisrael that there is only one place for the Jews to live? How could it be? It didn't reach everyone yet. How could it be? But again, you hear that judgment in my tone? That's exactly why it can't be. Because if there's an ounce of judgment when I say that, that means the time isn't ready yet. So God says to him, don't you understand? He says to Moshe Rabbeinu, first I'm fixing the root. And when I'm fixing the root, it looks like it's just hanging in the air. But somewhere inside you will see it will expand. Okay, I want to explain what he says over here. I want to try to explain. Moshe Rabbeinu was telling God, you said something would happen. How come it didn't fully happen yet? He says, are you kidding me? Do you know what I told your grandfather and your great-grandfather and your great-great-grandfather? I told them the same things that I'm telling you, that I told you on a certain level, that they're going to be the chosen nation and they'll be fruitful and multiply, and each of them had to go through so much sorrows. But you know what they knew? They knew that they're busy being part of a covenant. And when you're busy being part of a covenant, establishing a covenant with someone, it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't just come across, boom, like that, everything is clear. On the outside, it looks like, things are just in the air, but in the inside, something tremendous is happening. Basically, the Ishbitzer explains that Moshe Rabbeinu's question, why are you making it so hard for Yidden, was that he said, God, by the way, he said, God, they could leave right now and you could afflict the Egyptians later. You know how long the Makos took, the 10 plagues? A year. So Moshe Rabbeinu was saying to them, why do they have to witness all this horror? Why do they have to see all of this? Maybe it'll cause some doubts, bad feelings, guilt. What's going on over here? And the Ishbitzer says, no. God is saying, there's something much bigger that's taking place. If I just yank them out of here, you know what the problem is? On the outside, things might look gewalt, but their root, their yud ke vav ke, that's which is inside the mezuzah, that they won't be able to taste what it's really all about. You see, when we got to Mount Sinai, what's the first thing God does? He starts talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim. The first thing that God tells us, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Asher Hotzeticha me'eretz Mitzrayim be'yad avadim. It's like such a glorious moment. And God, the last thing God should be speaking about is what? Slavery. We're out of it. What are you talking about? Let's just talk about where we are now. So Rabbi Shlomo says, so why does God start talking about slavery? Because God is reminding every Yiddish. Remember back then you wondered what's taking so long? You wondered why it couldn't happen? So the only way you guys are willing to appreciate and take in the words of the Torah right now in Mount Sinai is because you went through every single thing you had to go through while you're in Egypt. Like I heard someone saying last week on the radio, if the Beis HaMikdash was built right now, if we built the Beis HaMikdash, it would probably be the worst thing in the universe. That doesn't mean for 1 second I don't pray for the Beis HaMikdash to be rebuilt right now. But if we just got the Beis HaMikdash right now, can you imagine, but without changing our insides, our roots, can you imagine what a horrific experience the Beis HaMikdash would be? It's not the Beis HaMikdash we're waiting for. It's not the Beis HaMikdash we're talking about.
Well, I heard something about it being that also, if we tried to build it now, we probably wouldn't even have been able to, because we're not even on the same page. Everyone's in such a different place that no one would agree upon one thing.
Nothing.
For it to be built.
Nothing.
To begin with. That's the biggest
Nothing.
problem.
So on a certain level, look, when we finally left Mitzrayim, how many people left Egypt according to the Midrash? Just 1/5, right? Because there were so many machlokas. Should we go? Should we not go? Where is it better for us? Where is it not better for us? All we have to know right now, Chavra, is that as the times are getting more and more confusing, those of us who are choosing to be awake understand that what God is doing with us is kishka work. This is right now. The name of the Ribono Shel Olam being carved into us in such a strong way is that the covenant is still being made. The covenant is still being carved within us. The narrowing down to be able to say Hashem Echad is what's in front of our faces every single day. Never ever be ashamed if you found your one tzinor, your pipeline. Glorify it, but you desecrate it when you say that it's the only pipeline. You mamish desecrate it. You minimize it. Like recently, I had an opportunity to begin working with a certain institution and be their English voice in the world. They're doing very beautiful stuff. And the person said to me, listen, I can't work with anyone that doesn't makabel Rabbi Nachman as his only as the pipeline. I just can't work with them. I said to him, it's a shame that you mamish make Rabbi Nachman seem so small. Don't you realize how much bigger Rabbi Nachman is? He's so much bigger than what you just did right now. He's so much bigger. So God is so much bigger than all the little things that we make him, all the narrowing we make of God himself as well. So basically, I know it's much more. I'm going to send last year's transcript also to complete this. But for now, the beginning of the Makot, the beginning of getting out of Egypt, is Hashem telling Moshe Rabbeinu, V'agah hakimoti et briti itam. I was busy carving a covenant into your fathers, and they never asked me the question that you just asked. Lama hareota la'am hazeh. Why do you make it so bad? Because when you're in the midst of creating the ultimate, you have holy patience. But there's a little bit of a wink in Hashem's talking to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, we're going to end with this, I know it's late. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't ask, God, why are you making it so hard for me? Moshe Rabbeinu saw the pain of another Jew, and only then he asked, God, why are you making it so hard for your people? Moshe Rabbeinu could have been a child that grows up as such a rebel saying, God, why'd you make it so hard for me? My mom threw me into a river when I was just a few weeks old. And then he could have said, God, why'd you make it so hard for me that I had to I had to run away and be on the run my whole life? Why'd you make it so hard for me that I mumble? It's not me. It's that he sees the pain of another Yid, and when you see the pain of another Yid, you get a taste of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Moshe Rabbeinu, you're asking why are all the Jews suffering? I understand that it's a much bigger answer than what I can give you right now, but the fact that that's where your question is coming from, I'm going to give you a little taste of the infinite, of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Vayomer Elav Ani Hashem. There should be complete harmony and oneness between the two names of God, Shin Daled Yud, and Yud Kei Vav Kei. And that whenever ever we see someone else's derech of avodas Hashem, bringing him closer to God, we should glorify his path. If it's for us, it's beautiful. If it's not for us, it means nothing about his path. As long as it's in the Daled Amos of Halacha, it means nothing. As long as it's in the works of the Halacha, it's the most beautiful thing in the world for them. But we should be able to also glorify the fact that when we do find that one thing, When we stop looking for, as a metaphor, all the women of the world and decide, I'm just marrying this one woman, we should have enough confidence that our narrowing down will bring us to a place of being able to taste the bigger picture, the real beauty, the source of love, instead of just branches of love. Bezrat Hashem Yitbarach. All right, thank you so much for coming. We'll continue next week.